Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, a city beside a lake, doomed, according to scientists. Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo is still reeling from the eruption of the volcano of Mount Nyiragongo back in May. And the news for the future, sadly, isn't good. Clément Bonnerot is our reporter who's been to Goma for this week's programme. Clément, tell us about life in Goma now and tell us why the scientists are saying that the city is doomed.
Well, life has returned to normal in Goma, but of course the danger is still there. Mount Nyiragongo isn't going anywhere. And what scientists and experts are saying is that there will be another eruption. No one can say when, but the question that everyone is asking is how do you prepare for a potential disaster?
Clément, thank you very much indeed. Let's then take a look at the report from Clément in Goma.
Hand in hand, Fanny and Patrick returned for the first time to the place they once called home. Buried under the solidified lava, the house they lived in for 17 years. 17 years swept away in an instant.
I see a small fence in the distance. That's how I recognize my house. It was our neighbor's fence. But I can't see my house anymore. It's covered by the lava. The volcano's taken everything.
That night, Fanny was working in her shop. Her husband, Patrick, was at home with their 7 children when suddenly the sky burst into flames. Lava poured down the sides of the volcano at 100 kilometers per hour, destroying everything in its path. Horrified and confused, Patrick and the children waited until the last minute to flee.
When I saw my house go up in flames, I almost lost my balance. My head was spinning. I realized that my life was turning into a nightmare. All around me, the neighbors were going crazy.
Fanny, Patrick and their children took refuge in the nearby town of Sake. They've since returned to Goma, moving into this one-bedroom house. But the family is struggling to move on.
When I think about the volcano, I know that it can erupt at any time. I'm scared. The eruption has left a wound in my heart. I'll never forget it.
Like Fanny, some 2 million people live in the ominous shadow of Mount Nyiragongo. Standing at 3,470 meters above sea level, it's one of the most active and dangerous volcanoes on Earth. Its crater holds the world's largest permanent lava lake, which threatens to overflow at any time. In 1977 and 2002, the lake emptied in just minutes. This time again, experts failed to predict the eruption.
We didn't expect it so soon. We expected an eruption in the coming years because the risk had been increasing. The amount of lava inside the crater had increased. But we weren't ready for it to happen within days or months. We still have a lot to learn. We were clearly wrong.
Scientists, every new eruption is an opportunity to better understand the volcano's behavior. Dario Tedesco and a team of international researchers map out and monitor the new cracks that have formed around Goma.
This is a device we use to measure the flow of CO2 in the soil. We make these measurements all along the crack to see if there's carbon dioxide coming out of it.
Each crack is a potential opening for lava flows. By making these measurements on a regular basis, the researchers hope to identify new warning signs that could help predict future eruptions.
We measure the pressure. We measure the temperature inside the crack. With all this data, we can have a rough idea of when the next eruption is going to happen. It's not easy to say the exact date, but at least we can tell if the danger is there.
Getting to know Nyiragongo better is the difficult mission of the state-controlled Goma Volcano Observatory, or the OVG. In the aftermath of the latest eruption, it was blamed for not raising the alarm quickly enough. Yet, according to its director, so little is known about this volcano that its warning signs are too difficult to even spot.
Our volcano is unlike other volcanoes in the sense that we only have documented the 3 most recent eruptions. There is still much to learn, and it will take time before we can understand or even predict an eruption.
If the volcano has so far been understudied, does the OVG have the capacity to unlock its secrets? Down in the seismology department, Juliette and Arsène watch for earthquakes that could indicate the movement of magma.
Here we have a map that shows the epicenters of the most recent earthquakes alongside our recording stations. The data comes into us in the form of signals, which we analyze on these machines.
Expected to monitor earthquakes around the clock, but are often unable to do so. From October to April, after a World Bank programme came to an end last year, the OVG was left with no internet for 6 months. The Congolese government was supposed to take over, but it wasn't until 1 month before the eruption that an American company restored the connection.
If we don't have the internet, how are we going to monitor the volcano? We would have to go to each station and collect the data manually, but there are many stations that we simply can't go to. We have around 15 of them. We even have a station in South Kivu in Bukavu, which is more than 100 kilometers away.
Internet outages are not the only hurdle the OVG's researchers face. Buildings are poorly maintained, as are these barely functioning vehicles gathering dust outside. Another example is this warning siren, a gift from the UN's peacekeeping force, which has been out of service for years. With such limited means, researchers also struggle to do basic fieldwork.
We're supposed to go out in the field every day, especially our technicians, but we can't do it regularly enough. Sometimes there's no money, you need fuel, you need all kinds of things.
More than 30 years after it was set up, the OVG still doesn't have proper funding. The observatory relies heavily on foreign partners for financing and equipment.
Today we have around 15 seismic stations, which is good, but obviously we'd like to have even more. In any case, compared to the previous eruption of 2002, at least now we have the capacity to gather reliable information.
In a memorandum sent to President Félix Tshisekedi a few days after the eruption, a union representative condemned the OVG's dependence on foreign partners, dubbing it a form of neo-colonialism. He also warned of widespread clientelism and corruption within the OVG, alleging that salaries as well as millions of euros in funding have been embezzled over the past decade.
The salaries of state employees were misappropriated. I can prove it. The OVG also received millions from the World Bank and the European Union, but the staff did not benefit from anything.
Under pressure from employees, the public prosecutor in Goma has opened an investigation, and the OVG's Director General was fired in January. The Congolese government, meanwhile, has promised additional financial support for the OVG, saying that nothing would ever be the same again. The latest eruption has indeed reminded everyone of the inescapable threat looming over Goma, a danger that comes not only from the volcano, but also from Lake Kivu, which stretches over 2,700 square kilometers, straddling the border between the DRC and Rwanda. These calm waters hold huge quantities of methane gas and carbon dioxide at a depth of about 60 meters. Charles Balagizi monitors the lake each week.
We know the concentration levels in the lake from our measurements before the eruption on the 22nd of May. Now we're doing the same measurements at the exact same spots, and we compare them to see if there are any variations.
If disturbed, the deep layers of Lake Kivu could cause a limnic eruption, that is, the sudden release of billions of cubic meters of gas. Such a disaster occurred in 1986 at Lake Nyos in Cameroon. Flattening everything in its path, the blast killed more than 1,700 people who were asphyxiated in minutes. Researchers say Lake Kivu has the potential for a major catastrophe should there be a big enough trigger.
The lake has been stable so far, but there are triggers that could destabilize it. For example, if we had a huge earthquake with a magnitude above 6.5, it could be a risk for the lake.
A small portion of the lake is of more immediate concern for scientists. Here in the Gulf of Kivu, high concentrations of carbon dioxide are found just 15 meters below the surface. Even a small lava flow could trigger an explosion. This pilot extraction platform was installed in 2017 by a French scientist.
There's a pipe that pulls the water upwards towards the surface along with the gas. You see it there, the white pipe, and then another pipe pumps the water back into the lake at a depth of around 15 meters.
The Congolese government is set to invest €4 million to remove the gas from the Gulf of Kivu, and even though the extraction of carbon dioxide may not offer economic benefits, methane gas can be used to produce electricity. Rwanda has been at the forefront of such developments, launching its Kivu Watt program in 2015. In the DRC, the Congolese government has signed an agreement with a Tunisian company to build a power plant over the next decade. But no matter how fast authorities act, Goma will continue to live under the threat of a major disaster. Could it one day be wiped off the map entirely? And can anything be done to prevent it? This team of urban planners is looking at the feasibility of moving the city to Sake, 30 kilometers to the west.
We're measuring coordinates to make sure our maps are as precise as possible and to identify land that's already occupied. Because when you work on such a project, you want to avoid any disputes over compensation.
Experts recommend converting these pastures into two new urban centres, Sake 2 and Sake 3, to accommodate up to 400,000 people. It's a colossal project on which the government has yet to put a price tag. The aim is to relocate residents of districts closest to the volcano to ensure an easier evacuation in the event of an eruption.
In Goma, out of 18 districts, 13 have an average density of more than 2,200 people per hectare. We all saw what happened on the 22nd of May. People were evacuating through the same road. Instead of just 20 minutes, it took them 3 to 4 hours to get to safety.
Plans to move the city have been in the pipeline for years, and some would prefer them to never see the light of day. On the rugged slopes of Mount Nyiragongo, locals are not ready to leave. For the Mwami, the area's traditional chief, the population has learned to live with its troublesome neighbour.
Locals have a sacred relationship, an almost godly relationship with the land, because traditionally when someone is born here, we bury their umbilical cord in the ground. This land is all we have. This is our home. Where else can we go?
After every eruption, the Mwami and his people painstakingly rebuild their lives on the solidified lava, and the aftermath of this eruption will be no exception.
And our reporter Clément Bonnerot is still with us. Thank you, Clément, for that insight into the plight of the people of Goma. In May, the Volcano Observatory was blamed for not doing its job properly. Tell us about that.
Well, the observatory certainly faced multiple problems in recent years, and we talk about the fact that the OVG had no internet for 6 months, and many people accused the OVG of not monitoring the volcano. Well, that's not the case. During the months when the OVG did not have an internet connection, researchers were still able to collect data and analyze it with their partners in Belgium and Luxembourg. Of course, the internet outage probably made things very difficult for the researchers, but the volcano was being monitored, and the data that was collected did not indicate that an eruption was about to happen.
So people weren't prepared. Clément, did corruption play a part in all this?
Well, the ongoing investigation will hopefully shed light on the allegations that we talk about in the report. But I think it comes down to a problem of governance. The OVG is and was clearly underfunded, and therefore it has to rely on external partners for financing and equipment. And that creates tensions, hence the accusations of neo-colonialism that we talk about in the report. And I think it also raises a critical issue, which is one of accountability. When things go wrong, who do you blame? Do you blame the OVG? Do you blame the government, or do you blame the partners? And this is precisely what many researchers at the OVG denounce. Let's listen to one of them.
We are a state institution. The state has a duty, an obligation to protect its population. The OVG is accountable, but unfortunately it is left without any means, without state funding.
Jonathan Kivu of the OVG. Let's go back to Clément. Clément, back in May, the lava miraculously stopped more or less short of Goma because there was a fear that the city was going to be completely overwhelmed by that lava. It's now, of course, turned into volcanic rock, and we'll show you, we'll show everybody at home the images that you filmed of people, local people, collecting this rock. Now, why are they doing this?
Well, they're using it for construction to build houses. And this echoes what we say at the end of the report, which is that the people of Goma have learned to live with the volcano. They don't see it as a threat, or not just a threat. They know that the lava will perhaps one day destroy their homes, but they also know that when the lava solidifies, they can use it for construction. And I think this is a very touching example of the remarkable resilience of the people of Goma, who faced so many threats over the past decades, armed conflict, economic problems, eruptions, and yet they always find a way to move forward with their lives and to overcome their difficulties.
Here's to that resilience. Clément, thank you very much indeed. A report by Clément Bonnerot and Juliette Dubois. You, of course, can see the report again via our website, france24.com. This is Reporters on France 24. Stay with us. Most of all, stay safe.